From blazing speeds to epic crashes, the 2022 Valencia Test was full of surprises. So buckle up, folks, because we're about to take a high-speed ride through the good, the bad, and the ugly of the latest and greatest vehicles on the market. In today's video, we'll be looking at the result of the Valencia Test. So stay tuned to MotoGP Thunder as we talk what the 2022 Valencia Test was all about. If you're just tuning in for the first time, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more exciting news and stories from the world of MotoGP. The 2022 Valencia Test, held on the 8th of November 2022 at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo in Cheste, Valencia, Spain. And like with pre-season tests, teams would be free to complete races, qualifying runs and a race simulation during the first public test of the new 2022-23 rule set. This test will be the first on-track opportunity for the riders to test out the new MotoGP bikes, and will be the first glimpse of what the 2023 MotoGP season will look like. The test will include riders from all three classes, MotoGP, Moto2 and Moto3, with their new bikes being introduced. Riders will be able to adjust settings and geometry of their bikes to better suit the track conditions. This will allow the riders to gain an understanding of the bike's capabilities and become more familiar with the new machines. The test will also be an opportunity for the teams and riders to work together to get the best results. This will give the teams and riders a chance to get an understanding of how the new bikes perform and how the riders can best utilize the new technology. 2022 MotoGP Valencia Test Report. A few days after the last round of the MotoGP season, all the teams and riders return to Valencia for a day of testing. This is where they get to test the bikes they'll be racing in 2023. The first session was a mixed bag. There were a few crashes, including Marco Bezzecchi's outlap crash, and some front brake problems for Johan Mir and Pol Espargaro. The good? Well, after the season-ending Sunday race, teams and riders took to the track for a day of official testing, the final chance for track action this year. The test saw 9 riders make their debuts with new teams for 2023. Enea Bastianini for Ducati Lenovo, Jack Miller for Red Bull KTM, Pol Espargaro for Tech 3 Gas, Johan Mir for Repsol Honda, Alex Rins for LCR Honda, Miguel Oliveira for RNF Aprilia, Raul Fernandez for RNF Aprilia, and rookie Augusto Fernandez for the Tech 3 Gas team. It was an exciting test for all involved. It featured the final races of the season, and it ended in an emotional way as a young Spanish rider took a sensational victory on his return to the Suzuki X-Star. It was a memorable moment for all the fans and for the rider too. The first of the riders to turn up was Fabio Quartararo, who finished 5th on the opening lap and looked strong throughout. He was followed by Jack Miller and Francesco Bagnaia, who were battling for 5th. It was a great battle to watch, but Quartararo and Miller were unable to capitalise on their early pace. Meanwhile, Luca Marini was off to a good start on his new KTM, but he was also having to work hard to stay with the leading riders. He was clearly disappointed with the results of this morning's test, and was probably looking forward to Tuesday's post-race test in Valencia, where he hopes to find some solutions to his ongoing issues with the 2023 Honda. Despite being on the wrong bike for next season, Marini was still meticulous in his testing. He was able to spend time analysing the data, allowing him to learn from his mistakes and improve his performance in the future. He was then able to put those lessons into practice, and he showed that he can be very fast when he has the right setup. As a result, he should be able to challenge for top 5 finishes in most of the races he enters next season. The other 2 riders who had the best qualifying sessions were Alex Rins and Brad Binder, both of whom finished in the top 6. However, the 2 of them had crashed in FP3 and were not able to get their laps up, leaving them with a lot of negative experience to work on. The bad. The big news going into the test was the 2023 Yamaha M1, a bike that was expected to be much faster than the current version, having been extensively tested by Cal Critchlow at Jerez and Aragon. It was only a matter of time before we saw it in action, and sadly, it did not deliver on its promise. First of all, the Honda engine, despite being significantly improved in 2023 compared to the current model, was not able to deliver the power and acceleration that we'd been expecting. The underlying problem remains unknown, but it appears that the new machine does not possess sufficient initial weight to transfer rapidly to the front wheel. This can cause a number of issues, such as Honda's front wheel locking in turns. That's not ideal as it can lead to overheating, which will slow the bike down even further. Another problem was the track itself, which lacks any kind of speed advantage for the bikes. It's long, 0.455 miles or 0.9 kilometers, and the riders exit turn 14 at over 40 miles per hour or 65 kilometers an hour, before hitting the brakes for turn 1 at over 200 miles an hour or 321 kilometers an hour, so brute power is needed to accelerate the bikes to their maximum potential. Nevertheless, the new Honda did deliver enough top-end power to allow it to be competitive around the fast and twisty circuit in Valencia. It was, however, only marginally faster than the Suzuki of Jorge Martin and Alex Rins. The only other significant difference between the two machines was their top-end braking, where the 2022 model was a little slower than the older bike in the straights. The difference was only a fraction of a second, but it did make a noticeable difference during the race. Quartararo, who had been a little faster in practice and qualifying, struggled to put his Monster Energy Yamaha MotoGP bike into the best possible position. His teammate Franco Morbidelli and Tech3 KTM factory racing duo Raul Fernandez and Rennie Gardner all caught up to him in the final laps, but he was able to fend off both of them to take 9th place. One of the biggest stories this season is the departure of Suzuki, which, as expected, left a huge void in the MotoGP lineup. Due to Suzuki's withdrawal from MotoGP, 2020 world champion Johan Mir and Alex Rins were left scrambling to find new teams. The ugly. A little bit of everything went wrong at the 2022 MotoGP Valencia Test, and it's a shame that a lot of it was down to mismanagement and poor planning from the teams. The weather had been a nightmare all week, and the track was still damp from the rain on Friday morning, but the race itself turned out to be far more tame than the pre-season hype had predicted. It was a good start to the race for Lorenzo as he set a blistering pace from pole position, while Rossi struggled to get up to speed. He had to fight off Dani Pedrosa and Marc Marquez before finally getting past them and finishing in 4th place. The Hondas weren't much to write home about either. A decade-long winning streak was ripped apart by a string of crashes. Pol Espargaro had a terrible first lap and tripped over his rear wheel. Taka Nakagami crashed out. Alex Marquez locked up his ride height device. Stefan Bradl burned his foot from the heat of the bike's chassis, and it was a horror show for Honda. Johan Mir's time with Suzuki was a disaster. He overrode his engine twice and was injured in 2 other races. He also missed 4 races because he broke his ankle and had a terrible case of compartment syndrome. Jack Miller of Ducati was another rider who was in trouble this weekend, and he didn't have the best time of it either. He overshot turn 6 and went into the gravel, then made contact with Johan Mir of Team Suzuki X-Star, which forced him to sit his bike up and correct, but it wasn't enough for stewards to penalise either rider. There were some scathing comments about the decision from some fans, but it was probably only fair to ensure that there weren't any clear signs of revenge on either rider. It would have been unkind if one rider acted out of frustration on another, and if that happened in front of the media, it could have been disastrous for the sport as a whole. The final words. It was a tense and frantic day in Valencia as the championship contenders battled to secure their spots on the grid for the 2022 MotoGP season finale. It was also the final test of the season for many riders, including Francesco Bagnaia, who needed a finish in the top 10 to guarantee his MotoGP title. The results were a mixed bag, with several riders finishing the session in the top 5. However, the majority of those who were on the pace during FP1 and FP2 had their times wiped out in FP3, with several crashes affecting both current points leader Francesco Bagnaia and reigning champion Fabio Quartararo. Luca Marini, who was a GP22 rider in 2022, finished on top of the timesheets, ahead of Aprilia's Maverick Vinales and VR46 teammate Marco Bezzecchi. Bezzecchi, who had the fastest lap in FP2, got caught up in a crash in FP3, which meant he was unable to make it to the end of the session. Meanwhile, Rins and Martin went toe-to-toe on the front row for a spirited battle that saw them swap the lead for the final 2 laps. The pair were separated by only 1.2 seconds after 70 laps, although Rins had a better top speed on his Desmodici, the bike that was to leave Suzuki for Repsol Honda in 2022. With the 2023 prototypes on display and a number of new HRC items seen, there was plenty of intrigue in Valencia. However, it was a day of testing that left most people questioning whether the bikes that were sent to Valencia could really compete for the World Championship. The most important issue for the teams was that they needed to find a way to improve their engines for the next season, with Marc Marquez going so far as to say, "You can't fight for the championship with this bike." This is a fair assessment of how the bike is right now, and it has led to an interesting discussion about the rules for engine development in MotoGP. During the course of the day, it was clear that Aprilia had made some serious progress, with a number of changes in the way the bike felt and behaved. With the reacquired swing arm, updated chassis and updated engine all in place, the 2022 model looks set to be a strong contender for next year's MotoGP series. Well folks, that's a wrap on the 2022 Valencia Test report. It's been an exciting journey filled with high speeds, daring moves, and a few unexpected twists and turns. We hope you enjoyed this high-octane ride and that you've learned something new, as this test has given us a glimpse of what to expect this season. So you don't miss out on our next video, hit the subscribe button and smash the notification bell icon, so you'll be notified when we next upload. Until next time,